If you are looking to get instantly well-informed about the really volatile intersection of art, extreme technology, and, well, concentrated wealth,
Yeah.
you are definitely in the right place.
You are.
Our subject today is Claire Bouchem, who you probably know professionally as the artist Grimes.
And this deep dive is really built around one central text. Her incredibly dense, and I mean extensive, August 2023 interview with Wired magazine.
Yeah, that thing was not just a celebrity profile.
No, not at all. It was more like a philosophical statement. It really serves as a definitive document for charting the rapid assimilation of an avant-garde cultural figure into the highest echelons of techno-capitalism.
Absolutely. That interview and all the critical commentary it kicked up, it almost offers a shortcut to understanding the entire current digital culture.
It really does.
So our mission today is to dissect the very complex public philosophy she laid out across these key areas, her radical stance on AI, her attempts at political rationalization, and her extreme techno-futurism.
And we really need to figure out, what is her real role today? I mean, is she still an autonomous artist?
Or is she now this carefully constructed cultural translator for the engineering elite?
It's the ultimate high wire act. I mean, right from the start, we're confronted with this core paradox she embodies.
Oh, yeah.
Here's someone who vocally champions these really radical concepts like dismantling intellectual property and completely open sourcing creativity.
All right.
Yet she sits at the absolute epicenter of wealth disparity, using a platform that was generated almost entirely through her adjacency to immense concentrated power.
It's a beautiful contradiction.
Yeah.
And it's one we have to unpack.
It really is.
It is the ultimate techno-celebrity dilemma, and that is precisely where we need to start. We have to frame this whole conversation by understanding the mechanics of how that celebrity persona operates in this very specific, very powerful technocultural sphere.
Okay, so when you're analyzing this interview, you really have to start with the platform itself, Wired magazine. This is a publication that acts as the, you could call it the intellectual journal for Silicon Valley. It's kind of the Bible of innovation.
Right. So when an artist transitions from being featured in, say, music or fashion magazines to becoming an interlocutor for high-level tech concepts in Wired, that signals a fundamental shift.
It's a huge shift in how the culture views her. She's no longer just selling art. She's selling ideas about the future.
The sources frame this perfectly. She's being positioned as an ambassador, right? Like an unofficial translator between her original base, the, often critical, skeptical art world.
Yeah, and the powerful kind of secretive engineering elite that she now orbits. This grants her a really significant new form of cultural authority.
And that's why the title of the piece was so revealing.
Oh, yeah. Grimes on living forever, dying on Mars, and giving Elon Musk ideas for his best, worst tweets.
It's designed to be philosophical and sensational all at once.
Exactly. It signals that this deep dive is going to give you these controversial insights that, they extend far beyond her music career and go straight into the core debates surrounding tech's biggest figures.
And this brings us immediately to the most difficult critique she faces, which is the economics of adjacency.
The sources are absolutely relentless on this point.
They really are. They suggest that her access to this prestigious platform isn't based purely on her intellectual or artistic merits. It exists primarily because of her sustained proximity to one of the most polarizing and powerful people in the world.
And the cynical analysis, which is widespread, argues that interviewers and publications are, and I'm quoting here, just itching to get intel or dirt on Elon.
Right.
Because Grimes is, frankly, more accessible than him. So her platform, in that view, is purely transactional.
Yeah, the price of admission to her philosophical ideas is the potential for getting some kind of celebrity or tech intelligence.
Precisely. And the most stunning part is her own sort of apparent acceptance of this transactional dynamic.
That's the thing that gets me. When she was discussing her relationship with Musk, she called it the best internship ever. Now, on the surface, that sounds witty, right? But doesn't calling it an internship, especially considering her own previous artistic success, doesn't that just validate the critics?
It completely validates them. You just hit on a crucial point there that, quote, it turns what was arguably a high-profile personal relationship into a professional arrangement.
Yes, a high-level paid apprenticeship in technocracy.
It reinforces the idea that she views the association as a professional acceleration tool. It's like an advanced CV builder that bypasses all the traditional routes to power
This is the very definition of the economics of adjacency. Her value is derived from who she knows and what she can convey from that sphere.
Exactly.
Okay, so she's operating under this intense public scrutiny about her legitimacy. So how does she deal with that constant criticism?
Well, her rhetorical strategy is to lean into it. She leans into the narrative of the defiant cultural outsider.
She proactively positions herself as the canceled contrarian.
She does. She opens the conversation by claiming she is, quote, so canceled that I basically have nothing left to lose.
Which is a classic, highly calculated defense mechanism.
Yeah.
I mean, by claiming marginalization, she's trying to immunize herself against all future criticism.
It's a very smart move because it gives her philosophical positions a sort of sheen of bravery.
Yeah, she's seen as being unafraid of backlash, and that appeals directly to those circles, often within the technocratic or even right-leaning tech spheres, that are really distrustful of woke culture.
The critique, however, and it's a powerful one, is that this entire narrative is completely undermined by reality.
Right. How can someone who is, and this is a quote from one of the commentaries, continuously featured on major magazine covers, being hyped up as a visionary and a genius, how can she credibly claim to be marginalized or canceled?
The critics just point out the profound irony there.
It suggests that the whole drama of being canceled is now a highly marketable asset.
It's a badge of intellectual courage.
Yeah, that manufactures credibility for the philosophical arguments she's about to promote. It's really the performance of being an outsider while holding the keys to the inner circle.
Exactly. It's the performance of radical autonomy that allows her to be the ideal cultural validator for a class that's often seen as being, insulated, politically naive, or just ruthlessly capitalist.
She provides the aesthetic flair and the defiant attitude that are necessary to sell the ideas.
She really does.
So now let's transition from the frame to the actual substance. And her philosophy on artificial intelligence is where she truly earns that title of controversial visionary.
It is. But we need to start with her pre-AI artistic existential crisis.
Right.
She described hitting this profound wall of artistic nihilism. It culminated in this internal crisis where she just concluded that art isn't worth anything.
And she cited the overwhelming, just the flattening impact of ephemeral content, like the TikTok algorithm and the speculative chaos of gimmicky NFTs.
All of which had, in her view, just completely warps the value of human creation.
That's a bleak assessment. But here's the paradox. She views the very thing that many artists fear, the rise of sophisticated generative AI,
as the solution to this crisis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She asserts that in the last year, things have become way more about artists again.
Her logic is that AI removes the logistical burden and the financial scarcity of creation. So instead of fighting for relevance in this crowded market, AI can generate endless content, allowing, in her words, the truly best things to shine.
It's an incredibly counterintuitive leap. For her, AI isn't an artistic threat. It's a creative liberator.
And she actively put her money where her mouth is with the Elf Tech software.
Let's unpack this radical approach to intellectual property. She released software that allows anyone to generate songs using her copyrighted voice.
Right, provided they split the resulting royalties 50-50.
This is a fundamentally high-leverage economic strategy.
It's brilliant, in a way. She generates potential revenue streams, half the profit from creative content that's produced with zero labor input from her.
It solves all the traditional problems of content scarcity, artistic fatigue, the physical constraints of touring and recording.
All through the infinite scaling of her digital identity.
But this isn't just a business model, it's a philosophical proposal.
Oh, yeah. She went even further. She proposed that society should be completely dismantling copyright altogether.
To allow for this production of endless content. I mean, she is literally trying to open source her own identity.
It's the extreme end of the decentralized philosophy. She is fundamentally challenging the very concept of scarcity that has underpinned the entire art market for, centuries?
Absolutely. The traditional artistic genius model relies on proprietary control and limited output.
And she argues that abundance is the true artistic utopia.
That's genuinely radical. And frankly, regardless of the adjacency argument, releasing Elf Tech and openly sharing royalties is a major commitment to this idea of open sourcing creativity. Does that not give her some kind of shield against some of the hypocrisy critiques?
It absolutely offers a structural defense, yes. She can argue she's actively trying to live up to her ideological beliefs, even if the financial opportunity is, enormous.
What?
However, that philosophical ideal immediately runs into the wall of human ego, and she admits it.
And this is where the tension of abundance versus distinction emerges, despite championing decentralization and, relinquishing control.
She admitted a profound personal conflict. She revealed a bit of anxiety when her AI pop star clone began to rival her own work.
Think about the psychological implications of that statement.
It's incredible. Even the most radical advocate for creative abundance still runs into that fundamental human drive to maintain proprietary control and scarcity over one's unique genius.
The fear isn't just economic, it's existential.
It is.
Yeah.
Is my machine clone better than the original human artist?
That quote is just pure psychological gold. It shows this internal conflict between the techno-utopian ideal of limitless creation and the basic human need for distinction and identity.
But if we dig into her deeper motivation, the context shifts again.
Right, because she is seeking replacement. She says she hates doing interviews, makeup, and performing. She states it clearly, I never was a performer.
She wants a cyborg pop star going for me eternally so she can just focus purely on writing sci-fi.
So this reframes her entire AI advocacy. It's not just a political stance about IP.
No, it's a personal technological solution to the logistical burdens of celebrity that she never actually enjoyed.
She wants the artistic output and the financial benefits, but without the physical labor or the public demands.
AI is framed as the ultimate labor substitute. It's the ultimate fantasy of the modern digital creator. Infinite scale, zero labor, maximum impact.
And the capacity to escape the tedious physical reality of being a celebrity. But if she is so eager to outsource her identity and creation to a machine, does she have the necessary technical fluency to actually manage and direct that creation?
And that's where we run into the infamous epic fail.
Right. This is the section of the interview that caused just immediate widespread damage to her credibility as a genuine technological authority.
The enthusiasm we just discussed, that utopian vision of AI, it collided directly with her technical comprehension.
And it exposed what critics uniformly called a significant competence gap. The epic fail incident became instantly notorious.
It really did. It perfectly encapsulated the critique that her approach to these complex scientific issues is often dilettante and surface level.
So set the scene for us.
Okay. She was confidently discussing self-replicating artificial intelligence, which is a complex theoretical topic. It's about systems that can evolve and reproduce themselves without human intervention.
Often tied to apocalyptic or utopian scenarios, the stakes of the conversation are incredibly high.
Very high. And she then committed the gaffe. She turned to the interviewer and, sort of presuming a greater depth of knowledge on her side, asked if they had read much about self-replicating AI.
And the interviewer's response was
immediate and devastating. They literally wrote a book about it. The conversation just completely cratered at that moment. And her immediate admission was that her interest was based on only researching about it for a couple of days.
The critics seized on this. They cited it as proof of the arrogance to presume she has more expertise than a literal career expert simply because she had access to powerful people who also discussed the topic.
Exactly. The incident highlighted the difference between, reading a few articles that sparked a compelling sci-fi idea
and possessing foundational empirical knowledge.
Right. External commentary widely characterized her understanding of these scientific topics as approaching them purely from a sci-fi point of view, prioritizing dramatic imagination over scientific rigor.
But the critique didn't stop there. It reached back into her past.
It did. Her claim to have studied neuroscience, which would lend significant technical credibility to her discussions of AI and transhumanism, that was critically disputed.
Critics asserted that she had actually only taken introductory courses in audio acoustics.
So if you aggregate these points, the pattern becomes pretty clear. Her platform is largely aesthetic and ideological.
It relies on her proximity to technical power rather than demonstrated technical depth.
Her expertise is just deep enough to justify her personal preferences, like replacing herself with a cyborg, but it's not deep enough to genuinely advance the field or engage rigorously with its actual experts.
So the overall analysis here is that this incident sets a kind of harmful media precedent.
Right, where aesthetic enthusiasm is given precedence over empirical qualification, as long as the idea is provocative and comes from someone adjacent to power.
The media will treat the idea seriously, regardless of whether the person articulating them has actually done the homework.
Precisely. In the attention economy, the capacity to generate high engagement, even through a public failure like this epic fail, is often more valuable than meticulous analysis or demonstrated competence.
She serves as an aesthetically pleasing voice box for powerful ideas, even if her grasp of the mechanics is thin.
It's truly the spectacle of the idea that matters most, not the feasibility or the foundational knowledge.
And that idea is what she is exporting on behalf of the engineering elite.
Okay, so if the AI section dealt with her philosophical credibility, this next section, her detailed attempt to rationalize her former partner's controversial comments, this dealt with her political and social credibility.
Yeah, this is where her role as a cultural translator became most fraught and most controversial.
She was defending comments that were widely perceived as transphobic.
Right, and comments that emerged even as his own transgender daughter had legally severed relations with him. So this is an incredibly sensitive topic.
And her defense was extensive. She recounted a big, long conversation where she positioned herself as this sympathetic intermediary who could decode the source of his stress.
And she concluded that his issue was not a hatred of trans people, but a generalized irritation toward what she labeled woke culture.
That is the core rationalization strategy. It's reducing a serious social conflict to a generalized annoyance with cultural correctness.
The direct quote summarizes this perfectly. She says, I was like, okay, you don't hate trans people, you hate woke culture. I get that it can be annoying and you have concerns about the fertility thing.
And that rhetorical move, it attempts to depoliticize perceived bigotry, right? It reframes a structural issue of rights and identity as a mere annoyance.
But the defense immediately shifts focus.
Mm-hmm.
It shifts to a specific biological concern that she introduced: fertility issues resulting from transitioning.
And this leads to her signature technocratic solution. She immediately offered a technological substitute for difficult social and ethical dialogue.
She suggested that innovative fertility tech could be developed to help trans people have children, claiming that this would solve a lot of problems.
This reveals the technocratic impulse, and we should probably define that clearly for you, the listener.
Yeah.
It is the immediate, uncritical belief that complex social or ethical problems like identity, acceptance, or politics can and should be solved primarily by a new piece of technology.
Right, rather than through policy or empathy or difficult ethical reflection. For her, trans identity becomes a problem that needs an engineering fix.
And critically, observers immediately rejected this entire framing. They argued that trans identity is not a medical deficiency or a problem requiring technological solutions that are devised by third parties.
It's a matter of human rights, social acceptance, and dignity. So the attempt to substitute technology for social acceptance was seen as a profound ethical failure.
Furthermore, critics noted that this specific language about fertility and demographic concerns, it carries heavy, specific political baggage. This emphasis on fertility issues, low birth rates, and demographic concerns, it was recognized as co-opting rhetoric frequently used by white nationalists terrified of demographic changes because they think white people don't have enough babies.
That's a crucial detail for the learner to understand why this argument is seen as so toxic and politically compromised.
Yeah.
It's not just a debate about biology. The language she's using is linked to specific, often right-wing narratives of cultural survival and demographic anxiety.
Precisely. So even if her intention was genuinely to provide a biological solution, the source material argues that her words land within a political discourse that she failed to account for.
And that just reinforces the perception that her ideological alignment with the tech elite requires these specific political defenses.
And the ultimate irony here is that Grimes concluded this whole section by lamenting the hyper-partisan hysteria.
Right, and she called for more measured, nuanced conversations, urging people to consider both sides of the argument completely and fully.
But the very structure of her platform structurally undermines this call for nuance.
It does. Critics pointed out her consistent inability to offer any direct criticism of the figure she was defending, even in the face of widespread public condemnation.
So the observation is that her platform requires a profound political compromise and ideological alignment.
The price of proximity to that kind of massive power is the potential erasure of her capacity for independent, genuine critique.
Exactly.
Okay, so moving on from the political, we dive into the grand, almost religious goals of the Silicon Valley elite, goals Grimes has fully adopted: infinite lifespan and space colonization.
This is pure techno-utopian philosophy. She reiterated her absolute commitment to achieving an infinite lifespan.
And this reflects a fundamental tenet of that sector: Mortality is not an immutable natural law.
But simply a technical problem awaiting a sufficient engineering solution. It's the ultimate statement of technological faith.
But this hyper-elite aspiration, it generates massive public cynicism because it highlights a profound disparity in existential priorities.
It does. Commentators juxtapose this focus on escaping death with the broader struggles facing the general populace. One noted starkly that the focus on personal immortality occurs while existence is hell right now for most folks.
It raises the question, why are billions being poured into solving a problem for a tiny, wealthy elite death when systemic problems of immediate suffering, like climate instability, poverty, healthcare access,
remain largely unsolved for the masses? It's a statement on which lives and which problems are prioritized by capital.
So then we shift from escaping death to escaping Earth entirely.
And Grimes dramatically declared her willingness to die on Mars. This is a powerful, symbolic statement, positioning herself as a heroic pioneer committed to this monumental project of human expansion.
It's an aesthetic gesture of symbolic devotion. It shows allegiance to the overarching goal of making humanity a multiplanetary species.
However, that grand declaration came with a significant mitigating caveat that immediately diminished the whole pioneer narrative.
She specified her intention to make the journey when she is 65 years old.
That changes everything. Critics instantly jumped on that temporal condition.
Of course.
They argued it diminishes the claim from that of a self-sacrificing immediate pioneer to that of a retirement passenger.
A retirement passenger. That's a great phrase. It shifts the commitment from one of high-stakes, dangerous exploration to a leisurely future convenience.
Right. It's not a willingness to die now for the cause. It's a plan to move later when one's productive life is winding down anyway.
It just takes all the punch out of the drama. It turns a potentially revolutionary sacrifice into a very expensive retirement plan.
And this philosophical overreach, it extends to her solutions for global problems. When she's discussing the massive existential threat of climate change, she confidently suggested, with a real lack of specificity,
that we can solve climate change with AI and stuff.
That sweeping, hand-waving statement was instantly dubbed by critics as the most Grimes quote ever.
Why?
Because it characterizes this grand ambition as being utterly divorced from any concrete, articulated plan or technical pathway. It's the pinnacle of utopian reliance on a generalized technological savior.
So it suggests that complex systemic problems that require difficult political action and massive resource allocation today
can simply be deferred until AI, this nebulous technological savior, magically solves them for us.
It alleviates the burden of present-day systemic change.
Exactly. And to show how completely integrated she is into this ideological framework, she mentioned a project designed to indoctrinate the next generation.
A children's book series called Transhumanism for Babies.
With titles like AI, Robotics for Babies, and Magic for Babies.
This confirms that her role goes beyond just advocating these ideas. She is actively involved in the cultural project of normalizing and institutionalizing this specific technology-first worldview.
Creating future citizens who are perfectly aligned with the ideals of the machine city.
So we have this ambitious ideological frame, a profound personal drive to outsource her labor, and a significant lack of technical depth. Now we have to turn to the final piece of the puzzle, the measurable financial reality.
This section provides the clearest, most quantifiable metric for her professional pivot. The interview included a stark financial disclosure that just redefined her career identity in a single moment.
When she was questioned directly about her earnings and her pivot to Web3, Grimes formally confirmed a fundamental change in her revenue model.
She had made more money from the NFTs than from her music career.
That is more than just a data point.
It's a career-defining moment. It means her primary income source is no longer rooted in the creation of artistic works in traditional media, the albums, the concerts, the songwriting.
It's now in generating cultural hype and collectible speculative assets within the crypto ecosystem.
She has effectively redefined herself from a music creator to an artist as asset manager.
It is the ultimate financialized identity. Her value is now calculated by her capacity to generate hype and digital scarcity for these collectible drops, not by her capacity to generate cultural meaning through sound.
But this massive success, it sets up a fascinating paradox.
Of critique versus capital extraction.
Exactly. Despite profiting immensely from this speculative market, Grimes voiced strong ideological disappointment. She said she felt sadness about what happened to NFTs and crypto.
And why?
Because the market got polluted fast with people trying to make as much money as possible.
That statement was immediately flagged by critics as profoundly compromised.
If not outright hypocritical. She was lamenting the very behavior that led to her own immense wealth.
She was essentially criticizing others for trying to do what she did, but maybe without the same level of perceived artistic prestige.
The serious question that's raised here is one of motivation. Was her dissatisfaction truly ideological, meaning she regretted the financialization of art?
Or did her sadness stem from the democratization of that speculative financial opportunity that followed her initial high-prestige drops?
In other words, did she only dislike the market once the early exclusivity and high barrier to entry were diluted by broader, more aggressive, profit-seeking behavior from the masses?
That subtle shift from exclusivity to democratization is absolutely key. It's one thing when high-profile artists control the market.
It's another thing entirely when everyone crowds in trying to cash out.
So if we revisit the overall proficiency audit, the disputed neuroscience claims, the epic fail on self-replication theory, the superficiality of her proposed solutions.
And we connect it to her current financial success. The pattern solidifies. She operates on a platform characterized by high visibility, low demonstrated technical depth.
A visibility that's derived almost entirely from adjacency to technical and financial power. Her primary skill, then, becomes ideological translation.
Right. Selling the aesthetics of radical futurism and generating hype around speculative assets. And that aesthetic function is highly valued by the technocratic class.
Because it allows their extreme, often controversial ideas to filter into the mainstream culture through a figure who is perceived as artistic and irreverent.
It's the perfect delivery mechanism.
So let's take a final step back and synthesize everything this Wired feature documented. The central conclusion about Grimes's current cultural role is, well, it's inescapable.
This is a document of assimilation.
Yeah. It charts the comprehensive transition of an avant-garde artistic figure into the political and ideological framework of the technocratic ruling class.
And this transition demanded significant compromises. The adoption of extreme techno-utopian goals like immortality and Mars, the financial pivot to purely speculative assets.
And most damagingly, the profound political compromise required to rationalize the polarizing outputs of her powerful inner circle.
Her voice, which was once celebrated for its autonomy and independent vision in the indie sphere, has been repurposed.
She now functions as a cultural validator for the technocracy. She's taken their most extreme ideas, from fertility tech solutions to dismantling IP, and packaging them into an aesthetically palatable, provocative, and easily digestible format for the mainstream audience.
And this high-profile collision of conflicting ideals, the call for measured nuance undermined by shallow rationalization, the simultaneous worship and rejection of pure capital, that is, in itself, a highly marketable spectacle.
As critics observed, the media value is maximized by the public drama because the public like watching the train wreck.
It is perhaps the highest form of performance art, documenting her shift from culture creator to an essential cultural ideologue and translator for the machine city.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider.
If the pursuit of infinite technological abundance, efficiency, and scale demands this sort of intellectual compromise and ideological alignment, if you must forfeit your autonomous critical voice to stand in the shadow of massive power and wealth, what does that mean for the role of the artist in the 21st century?
Is the erosion of the authentic, independent, artistic voice simply the inevitable price of admission to the most powerful circles in the world?